Imagine waking up to a call that changes everything before your coffee even cools. It was 6:47 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning in Toronto. Snowflakes drifted lazily outside my kitchen window as I cradled my second cup of coffee. The phone rang, and the name flashing on the screen made my stomach tighten. Glenn, my brother. We hadn't spoken in 3 weeks, not since that tense visit to Mom's nursing home. His voice on the line was calm, almost too calm, that false serenity that immediately sets off alarm bells. "Douglas, I have some difficult news. Mom passed away last night, peacefully in her sleep." I set down my mug. My hands trembled. When?" "The funeral is Friday," he said, cutting me off. His tone shifted, businesslike, cold. "I've already made all the arrangements. Oh, and Douglas, about Mom's estate. The will is very clear. Everything goes to me. The house, the cottage in Muskoka, her investments, all of it. You get nothing. Don't even think about contesting it." And then he hung up. I stared at the phone, frozen. My mother was gone. And my brother's first words weren't about her, about grief. They were a warning. Something was very, very wrong. Let me back up. My name is Douglas Harrison, 64, retired civil engineer. I spent 40 years designing infrastructure across Ontario. My wife, Catherine, passed 3 years ago after a battle with cancer. We had one daughter, Emma, now 28, a marine biologist in Vancouver. After Catherine's death, Mom became my anchor through the storm. My brother Glenn, 4 years my junior, had chosen a different path. A successful real estate agent, married, 2 kids. On the surface, life looked perfect, but I had noticed cracks. Whispered conversations at family dinners, financial stress, investments gone wrong. Glenn always chasing the next deal, stretching himself thin. Mom, Helen Harrison, 85, had been sharp as a tack her entire life. Retired schoolteacher, could recite poetry from memory, beat anyone at Scrabble. Independent, vibrant, until Glenn convinced her she needed help. He became her power of attorney, supposedly to manage bills and appointments. Within weeks, everything changed. Suddenly, she was diagnosed with severe dementia, moved to Maple Grove Care Center. Visits were shocking. My vibrant, witty mother reduced to a vacant stare, words fragmented and confused. I asked the doctor, Dr. James Whitmore, "Is this really possible? She was fine 2 months ago." He replied smoothly, "Dementia can progress very rapidly in some cases." But something didn't sit right. Something was off. Even when she didn't recognize me, I visited 3 times a week, held her hand, told her about Emma, about my volunteer work. Glenn visited less often, always rushed, always glancing at his watch. And now, standing in my kitchen, Glenn's words still ringing in my ears, the truth hit me. This wasn't grief. This was greed. I called Maple Grove Care Center immediately. "I'm calling about my mother, Helen Harrison," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I just heard she passed away last night." A pause. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but there's no record of that. Let me check her room." Minutes later, a nurse returned. "Sir, your mother is fine. She's having breakfast right now." I sank into a chair, my heart pounding. Please, don't tell anyone I called, especially not my brother. Next, I called my daughter. Emma picked up on the 3rd ring. "Dad, it's barely 7 a.m. What's wrong?" "Your uncle just told me Grandma died, but she didn't. She's alive. I think Glenn is trying to steal her estate." Silence on the line. "Dad, that's elder abuse. That's fraud. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I need to figure this out fast. The funeral, it's in 3 days." By morning, I had contacted lawyer Robert Chen. His words were blunt. "If your brother has power of attorney and is misrepresenting your mother's condition or misappropriating her estate, criminal charges are on the table, but you need solid evidence." Next, I hired a private investigator, Sarah Mitchell, sharp, precise, mid-40s, gray streaks in her dark hair. "How long has your brother had POA?" she asked, pen ready. 9 months, right after Mom supposedly developed dementia. Before that, she was volunteering, playing bridge twice a week. Her eyes narrowed. "We're going to need to dig deep."
Sarah nodded slowly.
"I've seen cases like this before," she said. "Give me 48 hours. I'll find out exactly what's happening with your mother's finances." That evening, I drove to Maple Grove Care Center without telling anyone. Snow clung to the pavement, the sky already darkening as I walked inside. When I reached Mom's room, she was sitting in her usual chair by the window, staring out into the fading light. She looked older, frailer, her gray hair thinner, her face etched with lines I didn't remember. But something felt different. She seemed less drugged, more present. "Mom," I said softly, pulling a chair beside her. She turned her head slowly. Her brown eyes met mine. For just a second, I saw it. Recognition. "It's me," I whispered. "Douglas, your son." Her lips moved, as if she were trying to speak. Then the door opened. A nurse stepped in to check her vitals, and the moment vanished like smoke. I drove home through the snow, my thoughts spiraling. What was Glenn planning? A fake funeral? Convince everyone Mom was dead, then quietly transfer everything while no one questioned it? It sounded insane, and yet terrifyingly clever. The next morning, my phone rang. "Douglas," Sarah said, her voice tight, "you need to sit down." I lowered myself into a chair at the kitchen table. "Your brother has been very busy. In the last 8 months, he's transferred approximately $280,000 from your mother's accounts into his own." My stomach dropped. "He sold her cottage in Muskoka to a numbered company. I'm still tracing it, but I strongly suspect he's behind it. He's also been using her credit cards." I clenched my jaw. "And Douglas, there's more." She paused. "The doctor who diagnosed your mother with dementia, Dr. James Whitmore, went to university with your brother. They've been friends for over 30 years. I felt physically sick. "So, the dementia," I said slowly, "it could be medication-induced." "Yes," Sarah replied. "Overprescribed sedatives, antipsychotics. It would explain the sudden decline. And if that's true, we're talking about attempted murder." Silence filled the room. "I'm getting copies of her medical records," she added, "but it'll take time. Until then, visit your mother again, document everything, and if you can, record conversations with your brother. Ontario's a one-party consent province." That afternoon, I returned to Maple Grove, phone in my pocket, recording ready. But when I reached Mom's room, it was empty. A nurse I didn't recognize was changing the sheets. "Where's my mother?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "Oh, your brother took her out for a drive, said she needed some air." My blood ran cold. "When?" "About an hour ago." I ran to the parking lot. Glenn's black Mercedes was gone. I called him, no answer. Again, nothing. 5 calls, silence. 3 hours later, they returned. Glenn helped Mom out of the car, supporting her as she shuffled toward the entrance. She looked exhausted, confused, barely able to stand. He spotted me waiting in the hallway. "Douglas," he said flatly, "what are you doing here?" "You told me Mom died yesterday, yet here she is." "Oh, that? Sorry about the confusion. I meant to call you back. False alarm. She had a bad episode. These things happen with dementia." "Where did you take her today?" "Just for a drive." "Really? Because she looks like she can barely stand." His smile vanished. "Back off, Douglas," he snapped. "I'm her power of attorney. I make decisions about her care, not you. If you don't like it, get a lawyer." He brushed past me, settling Mom into her chair, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then he left without another glance. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Hello?" Silence. Then a whisper. "Douglas." "Yes? Who is this?" "It's me." My heart stopped. "Who?" "It's your mother." That was impossible. She was right inside the building. "Douglas, listen carefully.
I don't have much time. Come to my room tonight after 10 p.m. Make sure Glenn isn't here and don't tell anyone about this call." The line deadened. I stood there as snow fell around me, staring at my phone like it had become something unreal. That couldn't have happened. And yet that voice, strained, quiet, but unmistakably her. After 10 p.m., I waited in my car. Glenn's Mercedes was gone. The night shift had taken over, only a skeleton crew inside. I entered through the side door and made my way to Mom's room. She was sitting up in bed, lights dim. When I stepped inside, she turned toward me. Her eyes were clear, focused, completely lucid. "Close the door," she said. Not a mumble, not confusion, a strong, steady voice. My hands shook as I shut the door. "Mom, what's happening?" She smiled, a real smile, the same one she used when she caught Glenn and I sneaking cookies as kids. "I'm fine, Douglas," she said calmly, taking my hand. Her grip was firm, steady. "I'm 85 years old, and I need you to listen very carefully."
"I've been thinking a lot about death," my mother said quietly. "About what happens after I'm gone, and what happens to the people I leave behind." She looked at me with calm, unwavering eyes. "I needed to know something before that day came," she continued. "I needed to know which of my sons would truly take care of me, not for money, not for inheritance, but out of love." The words hit me slowly. You faked the dementia?" I whispered. "To test us?" She nodded. "When Glenn suggested becoming my power of attorney, I saw an opportunity," she said. "I agreed, but I also contacted my own lawyer, someone Glenn has never met." I felt the room spin. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" Her expression softened. Sadness flickered across her face. "Because I had to test both of you," she said gently. "I had to see who would visit me when I had nothing to give back, who would sit with me, who would hold my hand even when I pretended not to know their name." My vision blurred. "You came 3 times a week, Douglas," she said. "You talked to me. You stayed, even when I acted like you were a stranger." Tears rolled freely down my face. "Of course I did," I said. "You're my mother." She squeezed my hand. "But Glenn," she said quietly, shaking her head, "failed. Worse than I ever imagined." She leaned closer. "I've been documenting everything. Every time he pressured me to sign papers, every time he lost his temper when I acted confused, every time he took something from this room thinking I wouldn't notice." My stomach dropped. "The $280,000 he stole," she continued, "I let him take it. I left those accounts open on purpose. I've been letting him dig his own grave." My blood ran cold. "Mom, he told me you were dead. He's planning a funeral for Friday." She nodded calmly. "I know. He told me today during our drive. He said I was going to have an accident, that I'd pass away peacefully. He wanted me to sign everything first. I refused." My voice shook. "This is insane. It's dangerous. We need to call the police now." "No," she said firmly. "Not yet." She looked at me with absolute certainty. "Robert Chen, your lawyer, has been my lawyer too for the past month. We have a plan, but I need you to trust me, Douglas." I squeezed her hand. "Always." Over the next 2 days, everything fell into place. Robert brought the police in quietly. They agreed to let the plan continue long enough to catch Glenn with irrefutable evidence. Tiny hidden cameras were installed in Mom's room. Nursing staff we trusted were looped in, and Mom continued her performance, confused, fragile, declining, whenever Glenn was around. He came twice more. The first time he brought documents, transfer papers for the house. "Just sign clearly, Mom," he snapped, frustration leaking through his forced smile. "I'm trying to help you." She scribbled nonsense, acted confused. The second visit, Thursday night, was worse.
He brought a syringe. I watched the footage later. It made me physically ill. He told her it was medication. We had it tested. It was a massive dose of sedatives, enough to sedate a horse. Mom pretended to take it, palmed the pills when he wasn't looking. "Tomorrow," said Glenn softly, stroking her hair, "tomorrow you'll finally be at peace. No more suffering." Friday arrived. Glenn had booked Thornhill Funeral Home. Notices were sent, relatives offering condolences, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. I played along. Yes, the funeral is at 2 p.m. Yes, it was sudden. The chapel was packed, flowers everywhere, a large photo of Mom from 20 years ago at the front, healthy, smiling. Glenn had even written an obituary, flowery words about a beloved mother after a long illness. I sat in the front row beside Emma, who had flown in that morning. Across the aisle, Glenn sat with Patricia and their children. His expression was perfectly sorrowful. At exactly 2 p.m., Glenn stood. He adjusted the microphone. "We're here today," he began, "to celebrate the life of Helen Margaret Harrison, born February 14th, 1939, passed away January 7th, 2025. He spoke of her kindness, her teaching career, her love. "And in her final months," he said, "she trusted me to care for her. She knew I would protect her interests, manage her affairs." His voice cracked, fake emotion, rehearsed. "She always loved me best," he continued. "She told me so many times. She wanted me to have her house, her cottage, everything she worked for." I stood up. Every head turned. "That's interesting, Glenn," I said loudly. "Want to tell everyone where Mom really is right now?" A wave of confusion rippled through the room. Glenn's face drained of color. "Douglas, sit down. This isn't the time," he hissed. "Where's the body, Glenn? Where's Mom's body?" "She's being cremated," he snapped. "We discussed this." "Really?" I said calmly. "Because I called the crematorium." I paused. "They don't have her." Patricia grabbed Glenn's arm, her voice trembling. "Glenn, what is he talking about?" The rear doors of the funeral home swung open. Every head turned, every eye widened, and there, framed in the doorway, was my mother. She walked slowly, leaning on her walker, but her back was straight, her eyes sharp, her presence commanding the room. Behind her, 2 police officers in uniform followed quietly. The room erupted. Gasps, screams, people jumping to their feet. Glenn's daughter burst into tears. Cousins and relatives froze, stunned. Mom moved gracefully down the aisle, each step deliberate. She stopped in front of Glenn. "Hello, son," she said, her voice clear, unwavering. "I'm not dead, but your inheritance is." Glenn's mouth opened and closed like a fish, words failing him. "Mom, you're confused. You're sick. This must be a mistake," he stammered. "I'm not confused, Glenn," she said firmly. "I've been recording everything for the past 8 months. Every threat, every theft, every time you tried to force me to sign documents transferring my assets to you. Every time you drugged me to keep me compliant." She turned to the crowd. Many were crying, some in relief, others in shock. "I'm sorry for deceiving all of you, but I had to know the truth. I had to see what my son would do when he thought I was helpless, and what I found broke my heart." One of the officers stepped forward. "Glenn Harrison, you are under arrest for elder abuse, theft over $5,000, fraud, and attempted probate fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Glenn tried to run. He bolted, pushing past an officer, but made it only 3 steps before he was tackled and handcuffed. His children sobbed. Patricia stood frozen, horror etched on her face. As they led him away, he shouted, voice raw and desperate, "I'm your son! You can't do this to me! I needed that money!" Mom watched him go. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained steady. "You were my son,
but you stopped being my child the moment you decided my life was worth less than my bank account." The legal battle lasted months. Glenn initially tried to claim Mom was incompetent, that he was just helping, but the evidence was overwhelming. Video footage of him forcing her to sign documents, audio recordings of his threats, bank statements proving theft. Dr. Whitmore's testimony, after he was granted immunity, about Glenn pressuring him to prescribe dangerous medications. In the end, Glenn pleaded guilty. 5 years in prison, $280,000 restitution plus $50,000 in fines, lost his real estate license permanently. Patricia divorced him, gaining full custody of the children. Dr. Whitmore also paid the price. He lost his medical license for knowingly endangering an elderly patient. Mom moved into a small condo near my house. She was done with the big house, done with maintaining property. She wanted to be close to family, close to Emma when she visited. To me, she had dinner twice a week. She began volunteering again, this time at an elder abuse prevention center, sharing her story to help others recognize the warning signs. We also established the Helen Harrison Elder Protection Fund, using part of the money Glenn had returned. The fund provides legal assistance to seniors fighting financial abuse and supports educational programs about POA responsibilities, ensuring no one else falls victim like Mom nearly did.
I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand. This remarkable woman had taught me more about strength, courage, and dignity in 1 year than in all the years before. She had survived betrayal by her own son, orchestrated her own rescue, and emerged stronger, determined to protect others from the same fate. That's what real family is. Not blood, not inheritance. It's showing up. It's loving when there's nothing to gain. It's standing up for what's right, even when it means facing your own brother. Glenn made his choice. He chose greed over love, theft over integrity, and he's paying for it, not just in prison, but in the loss of respect, trust, and the love of the people who mattered most. As for me, I inherited something far more precious than money. I inherited time. Time with my mother, real time, where we could talk, laugh, and heal. I inherited the certainty that when tested, I stood for what was right. And I inherited the opportunity to help other families avoid the darkness we faced. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. True family protects the vulnerable. And sometimes the bravest act an 85-year-old woman can commit is to pretend to be helpless, just to see who will rise when she can't rise herself. That's what I learned from Helen Harrison, my mother, my hero. The woman who showed me that dignity matters more than dollars, and that true love shows up even when there's nothing to gain.